Since this was introduced, everybody's been saying, don't buy the base car without that front limited slip diff because that's not a GR Corolla. Well, it's 2026 and that performance gap is completely gone. Toyota has standardized the rally spec hardware, added the aggressive bulged hood, and upgraded the cabin. Is it the value champion, or has that $40,000 price tag pushed it out of reach? I'm your host, Brian Makse, and on this channel you get reviews for drivers from drivers. Now here's what matters most: how this thing puts down power. Toyota finally gave the base model GR Corolla the same 295 pounds of torque as the upper models had previously, and that's up from 273 pounds of torque. On paper, that's just 22 pounds-feet of torque, but in practice, that's the difference between a car that builds speed naturally and one that just arrives at it. This 3-cylinder turbo doesn't make power like any 4-cylinder turbo, that's for sure. It pushes through the rev range with this relentless linearity that feels more naturally aspirated than boosted. It's very much like 300 horsepower pretending to be 240 horsepower, and maybe that's the point. 3-cylinder engines aren't supposed to sound good, and this engine doesn't entirely escape that rule. Below 4,000 RPM, there's a thrum that borders on agricultural, kind of like a tractor that went to finishing school. But keep your foot in it past 5,000 RPM and something magical happens. The note hardens, the vibration's smooth, and suddenly you're chasing 6,500 RPM because the engine sounds like it wants to go there. Toyota clearly tuned this thing to reward commitment. As much as we believe in old school heel and toe, there is an automated rev matching feature here, and it's aggressive enough to make you feel competent and subtle enough that even your passengers won't notice. Downshifts blip with the precision of something that's deserving of a GR badge, and definitely suggests that there are a number of proper drivers at Gazoo Racing. The gate's a little tighter than you'd expect for something that wears a Corolla badge, but this is a GR after all, and there's some proper heft and mechanical precision to the shifter. There's some real resistance to the shifter and some real feedback when it actually drops into gear. The third to second downshift definitely requires some deliberate intention, and I think this is the kind of gearbox that expects you to participate instead of just operate. The front and rear limited slip diffs changes everything about how this car leaves corners. You point the nose, you wait for that weight to transfer, and that rear diff just pushes you out of the corner. The front diff is a little more subtle. It stabilizes the nose on corner entry and then just points you straight on corner exit. Plus, like a proper sports car at its limits, you can adjust the attitude of this GR Corolla with some very subtle throttle adjustments even mid-corner. And it does it all so confidently that it'll let you play without the stability control interfering in your fun. This front diff is hardware that used to cost extra in the US. Now it's just how the GR Corolla works. The old 30 front, 70 rear torque split mode disappeared for the 2025 model. Now there's a track mode that varies torque split between 40 front, 60 rear, and 30 front, 70 rear, depending on what's going on. It uses channels like steering angle, yaw, and wheel spin to make the determination of how much torque is actually going to the rear axle. And through the corner, you can feel it calculating. On corner entry, it'll actually push the rear a little wide, as I've been enjoying, but on corner exit, it'll pull the front straight. It definitely works well, but it's a little unsettling if you want to know what that torque split is actually going to be before you turn in for the corner. For mechanical certainty, there is a gravel mode, and that locks torque distribution at 50-50. The label's wrong, but the behavior's right. One thing this test has reminded me of is that first gear is pretty short. The real driving kind of starts in second gear. Subscribers get notified when new episodes drop on this channel. Non-subscribers hope the algorithm will show it to them eventually. And if you want to know when new episodes drop on this channel, well, that's what the subscribe button's for. That's the drivetrain story, but none of that matters if the chassis can't deploy all of that power cleanly. Underneath, this 2026 model benefits from that massive 2025 suspension geometry overhaul. Raised trailing arm pivot points to kill rear squat under power, rebound springs to keep the inner wheels pinned to the road surface, and for 2026 they've gone further. Over 45 feet of additional structure adhesives make this the most rigid and predictable GR Corolla ever. The steering rack communicates more than enough to tell you what's going on at those two front contact patches without pretending that it's hydraulic. On-center feel is strong and the steering rack's quicker, and if you're coming from something that is a little less focused, it might feel a little nervous, but I do love a quick steering rack. It responds to those subtle, unconscious inputs you don't consciously know you're actually making, and at speed, it's incredibly precise. And for me, the steering is so good that it didn't take long at all for me to fully trust it. Sure, the red brake calipers might be a little showy, but these are brakes that actually like to work hard. Pedal effort is a little higher than the common car, but it's proper for an enthusiast car like this. Initial bite from those pads is strong, but they're not grabby, which is wonderful. And modulation all the way through pedal travel is linear, and you get great feel out of that brake pedal as well. Trail braking into snowy corners like we've been doing all day tells the whole story. You can lean on those fronts and then allow the rears to rotate a little bit. And ABS doesn't intervene until you actually need it. This is a proper braking system for a proper driver's car. Similarly, the suspension calibrations are appropriate for this car, but it's never punishing. Balance is delightfully neutral, and of course you can influence that with your steering, throttle, and brake inputs, and even mid-corner bumps don't really upset the chassis. Damping's firm, and yes, you do feel all of the changes in the road surface, and in this part of the world our road surfaces are just terrible, but again, it's never punishing, and it's something that is more than tolerable on a long road trip. You can daily this, I know a lot of people do, and if you own one of these, you definitely want to. Weight transfer in any direction happens a little quicker than you think, and it's one of those things that you do get used to, but this car changes directions incredibly quick. If you want to support this channel beyond just watching, well, the merch store is open, and your support there means more time for us to produce episodes like this and less time worrying about manufacturer blacklists. No pressure, just an option. One of the things I do appreciate about this interior is this upholstery, because it is fantastic for track days. It's going to hold you in place, as well as the bolstering of these seats, but adds a nice touch. Long-term wear, on the other hand, is a different story, but at least for the first few years of ownership, it's going to look fantastic and hold you in place. And genuinely, it's not marketing. It's the difference between holding your torso and your leg in place rather than having to brace yourself with the dead pedal or the steering wheel. Seating position's low enough, not really low enough for me, but the flip side of that coin is you do have fantastic visibility. If I bought one of these, I'd probably modify the seat bracket and get this seat a little bit lower. Steering wheel is just the right shape and the right size, encourages you to have your hands at 9 and 3, and I've got a great interface to the pedals as well, dead pedal as I mentioned, for your left leg. And for a driver's car, everything you need is within easy reach. You can switch off the traction and stability control, hold it a little extra long, and it turns off completely, so you avoid that expert mode. Drive mode selectors here, and of course your selector for the torque distribution for the all-wheel drive system is right here. For those daily use considerations, well, there is a wireless charger here. I don't think your phone would stay in place if you're going on a very interesting canyon run, let alone a track day. There is no armrest, so there is no armrest storage either. A couple of cup holders here for rationally sized drinks, as well as bottle holders in the doors. Sure, it's a Corolla, so hard surfaces do exist, but everything you interface with has a premium feel. There is a limited amount of cargo carrying capacity. At least you can fold those rear seats down, put larger items in here. The like button tells YouTube to share this video with other people like you who want to see videos like this. And if this episode gave you more information than a brochure or a press release, well, that's the entire ask. That's my take after a week. Now, here's what owners are saying after months or years living with the GR Corolla. And the biggest surprise? The interior. Apparently, reviewers call it cheap. I don't, but owners consistently report the opposite. One 17,000-mile owner put it bluntly, the amount of confusion or gaslighting by automotive journalists has been insane. Well, not on my part. Yes, it says Corolla on the back, but 45 feet of additional structure adhesive this year and a chassis tuned by Gazoo Racing means this shares exactly just a nameplate with the one you rented in Phoenix. Shocking, I know, but this is where press car loans measure in days and ownership experiences measure in years. The perception gap is real. For some owners, the rear differential clutch pack overheats after 10 to 15 minutes of hard track use and forces the all-wheel drive into front-wheel drive only mode. Multiple owners document the same experience, temps getting high, warning lights, reduced performance. This is perhaps why Toyota killed the fixed 30/70 rear torque split mode from the early cars. The variable track mode in 2025 and later is essentially a software patch, biasing front during straights to let the rear clutch pack cool between corners. It helps, but it's not a perfect cure. And speaking of track days, Toyota includes a 1-year NASA membership with the purchase of your GR Corolla that also includes a 1-day HPDE event. Use it. That free track day is still where the real learning starts, and you can climb the ladder all the way to putting a NASA National Championship on your wall, just like I did. And speaking of driving, the pedal spacing frustrates some owners when it comes to heel and toe. They say the throttle sits too deep relative to the brake pedal. We've got a heel and toe tutorial on this channel, links in the description. That covers common issues like this, and yes, the first fixes your shoes, not your car. But if you haven't figured out the footwear situation, the community consensus lands on a $50 accelerator pedal cover or a $125 spacer. Owners say that these mods are how the car should have left the factory. Still, check out our heel and toe video first before spending money. And before you sign the paperwork and leave the dealer with your GR Corolla, check the suspension for shipping blocks. Dealers routinely forget to remove them. That crashy ride might be the rubber spacers, not the GR suspension. The ownership reality is unequivocally that this is a genuine 4-season performer that rewards drivers who dig deeper. If you own one of these or have some quality seat time in one of these, let me know in the comments what I got right and what I got wrong, because owner experiences are much more valuable than anything I can learn on a week-long press loan, and I always read those comments. Now, in 2026, this base model costs about $40,000 US or about $52,000 Canadian. Is it still the value champion? Well, I think that's the wrong question. When Toyota standardized both the rear and front limited slip diffs, added the bulged hood, and upgraded the interior, they didn't raise the floor, they eliminated the ceiling. The top trim still exists for people who need carbon roofs and heads-up displays, but this base model no longer requires an asterisk. The performance gap isn't gone because it was closed, it's gone because it was always a little artificial. Now, if you're cross-shopping a Civic Type R or a Golf R, this GR Corolla is the less refined choice, and that's not a criticism. This entry-level trim is the mechanically honest baseline. It's the essential hardware without the premium theater. If you want the fancy stuff like the carbon roof or the heads-up display, well, buy the top trim. But if you want the most honest rally experience, well, I think this is your choice. It's no longer the entry-level option that no one wants. It's the essential one. It's the version of the GR Corolla for those who want to drive, not for those who want to explain what they bought. That's the 2026 GR Corolla. Subscribe if you like this, don't if you don't. Comment if you disagree, and the merch store is open if you want to support more of these. See you on the next one.